Indiana football, of course, came to an end over the weekend in the loss to Purdue. More importantly, Don, we've seen action on the coaching staff as Tom Allen has let Nick Sheridan go. So now Indiana is looking for an offensive coordinator. Not a big shock, but it's something that is happening now, and it's amidst of all these other coaching changes happening throughout college football. So it's not exactly an easy time.
No, it's not. It'll be interesting to see if Nick is the only head that rolls. And in some ways, you look at it and you say, kind of a victim of circumstances, Nick Sheridan, because last year they were so good and played so well. This year, it didn't happen at all at any point during the season where this team was spectacular. The Western Kentucky game would probably be the one that you would look at and say that was our best offensive performance against a decent football team. They were not a Power 5 team by any stretch, but still a team that was very challenging and very difficult to play against, and Indiana was able to win that ball game. But outside of those two ball games, I mean, the Idaho game, you and I might have been able to suit up in that one and maybe given them a tussle, but probably not. But nevertheless, it wasn't a very big challenge there. But when you don't win any of these games, and they were in a couple, Cincinnati and Michigan State, both were games that they could have won. And it would have turned their season around, I think. But they just couldn't get over the hump. Too many mistakes made. The number of times that they gave football games away this year in the sense of competing, not competing, but just they never realized their potential, the expectations that we had for them. And that's potential. And that just means you haven't proven anything. But at the same time, nothing seemed to go right for this ball club. And the injuries piled up toward the end of the season. That was a factor. There were so many negatives this year. But I just think Tom has got to evaluate everything. He said he was going to do that. I think he will. Whether or not that calls for other changes in the staff or how they go about recruiting a different type of player, I don't know. I know that they've got supposedly a great recruiting class coming in next year. Maybe the highest regarded recruiting class that they've ever had at Indiana. We've heard that before. And I'm not saying that it won't be. But the question is, will all those guys now come because of the disappointment of this year and how things look, how things are going to be handled? We'll just have to wait and see. I think Tom's got a huge job in his hands in this offseason to recreate what he built up here in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and his expertise has been on the defensive side. So not to say that hurts him, but not being an offensively minded coach, it probably maybe puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit more so than someone who would be, because that's not something or a side of the ball he feasts on. But he sure hit it right with Kalen DeBoer, and it's not that you can't do that again because there's so many talents out there now, whether it's we've seen names from Western Kentucky or Coastal Carolina or all those different places where there's a lot of guys out there, but it's just finding the one. And of course, finding, as Tom Allen always says, finding the right fit.
Exactly. And like I said before, I think this is going to be a critical hire. I don't think the offensive coordinator can be anything but a critical hire for Tom. And I think there's reason to say you could pretty much get who you want in regard to that, simply because they know that Tom Allen's a defensive guy. Whoever comes in here is going to take over the offense, and they're going to be able to build that offense the way they want to, because Tom's going to rely on whoever it is to make the decisions in regard to offensive play and how they're going about their business in this league. So it's an attractive job in that way. And obviously Indiana's paying a lot more money these days for their coordinators and for their assistant coaches than they have in the past. So that's a plus as well in regard to whoever would take the job. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I said before, whether that's the only change that this coaching staff is going to have or not, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not so sure that they don't need to make another change or two, but we'll just have to, like I said, wait and see.